Good morning to everyone and welcome to this second conference on digital economy and innovation. This second EU-Brazil conference will be dedicated to connectivity and new digital infrastructures. My name is Luca Belli. I'm professor at FGV Law School in Rio de Janeiro, where I also coordinate the Center for Technology and Society. And I will co-moderate this webinar today together with my friend Luigi Gambardella from EU Brazil. He is the president of EU Brazil, that is one of the co-organizers of this event, together with FGV, the EU delegation to Brazil, and the entire event is organized under the auspices of the Portuguese Presidency of the Council of the EU. Before we start, let me share a little bit of disclaimer. As usual, everyone here is aware that this webinar will be recorded, it is public, and everyone is participating to the webinar willingly, and no one here is expressing any official position of FGV, but only their own views. Now, we have an incredibly rich program today. We will have 3 segments. First, describing the main initiatives and cooperations avenue for connectivity and new digital infrastructures between EU and Brazil. Then we will dig into some very interesting projects and challenges, the Ella-Link cable, but also other very interesting initiatives that allow to connect not only Brazil to Portugal, but in the entire Latin America to the entire Europe. And then we will discuss how to connect people and things through a variety of different models and initiatives that are emerging and are particularly interesting for our discussion. This first, I'm not listing all the panelists we have in this moment, because otherwise it will take 10 other minutes, but I would suggest that we present every panelist one by one. And the first one to start with is Professor Gorete Pereira Paulo, who is the directress of the FGV Office of Research and Innovation, and as you all know, is the great woman behind all our FGV successes. So please, Gorete, the floor is yours. I think we have some connectivity problem with Gorete, so I suggest we start with Carlos Oliveira, who is Minister Counselor for Digital Market at the delegation of the European Union to Brazil. So please, Carlos, the floor is yours.
Well, I hope that everybody can hear me loud and clear. My first comments or my first compliments are to salute Mrs. Professor Gorete Pereira Paulo from the Getúlio Vargas Foundation, but also the other participants in this opening session, my friend Filipe Batista from the Portugal Repair Permanent Representation, and of course Luigi Gambardella and Luca Belli, and in this process also all the other distinguished participants in the 2 panels that we are going to have during this very interesting session that we have today. Of course, we are very thankful to the Fundação Getúlio Vargas for organizing this event that undoubtedly constitutes another opportunity to highlight the important cooperation between Europe, European Union and Brazil across the various dimensions of the digital transformation. And since the first edition that we had a couple of months ago, we had the chance of celebrating a very important achievement, the optical fiber submarine cable Ella-Link connecting Brazil to Portugal, which is a major step giving substance to the EU-Brazil strategic partnership. And the fortunate coincidence made that this inauguration coincided with the Portugal presidency of the EU Council. And this is also a good opportunity to also address my compliments to Mr. Philippe Dumont from Ella-Link, that somehow responded to the challenge launched by the European Union and by Brazil, and provide us with this important 21st century infrastructure. And while this is a very important and crucial element, Brazil involvement doesn't stop here. In fact, as part of the ambitious project BELA, Building Europe Link to Latin America, we are going to have a whole infrastructure connecting nearly 12,000 research institutions and universities in Europe and Latin America. And this potentially can reach a universe of more than 60 million people, researchers, students across the two continents. And this is also a good opportunity to address here a word of thank you to RNP and Mr. Eduardo Grisendi, that represents in this event also the president of RNP, Nelson Simões. But beyond these impressive figures, one of the things that I think it's very important to mention is that we need to realize fully the potential of ELALink. And this means actually supporting collaborative research and innovation activities involving institutions that are on both sides of the Atlantic. And with the upcoming launch of Horizon Europe, actually the main event is information days are planned towards the end of the current month. This will be an opportunity, a renewed opportunity to have Brazil more involved with Europe research activities. And in this respect, I have to say that we count very much with the renewed and constant commitment of Professor Moacir Martucci, national contact point for the digital area, to really continue his strong mobilization of Brazil research community, work with their European counterparts, not only the development of new technologies, but something that we also consider very important is transforming them into drivers for innovation, bringing benefits to the citizens, creating jobs, and promoting socioeconomic development, because that's also something that is a fundamental objective. I mean, we cannot really talk about digital transformation without mentioning 5G, because in the minds of everybody. And that is the reason why we think that it's very good that Brazil has been from the very first beginning involved in this cooperation with the European Union on this area, not only through the involvement of European companies like Ericsson and Nokia that are EU-based and are at the forefront of 5G development, but also with the operators like Telephone that are also important players in Brazil. And this is also important because what is important, what is said always, that we are not only talking about 5G as a communication mechanism, but also about the many things that we can do with it in around factors of the future, about connected vehicles, smart mobility, logistics, energy efficiency, smart grids. And I mean, I could continue to go on, but I believe that actually in the second panel, my colleague and good friend Bernard Barani will be providing quite a number of illustrations of what is taking place in Europe, not only now, but also having an eye in the future. And that I think will be very important and very useful to identify areas in Brazil in these areas. I mean, just taking 30 seconds more to mention something that I think is in the minds of everybody. We're coming out of probably what has been the most important crisis of our generation, the COVID pandemic. That means that in reality, we need to think about ways of moving forward toward the future and learn the lessons that result from this, using this also as a way of creating new paradigms. That's the reason why I would like to make here a quick reference to the Next Generation EU. We had actually yesterday, a couple of days ago, the first call for funds to support the recovery and resilience programs across all the countries in Europe. And this is something that we think it's very important, because the two main important priorities are precisely green transition and digital transformation, with very similar weights, 37, 20% of the overall funding. That is also an idea of actually moving forward with what we call in Europe the digital decade. The digital targets for 2030. And this is, from our point of view, also a very good opportunity to explore new dimensions for EU-Brazil partnerships. EU-Mercosur in itself is already a very good catalyst for such collaboration because it includes specific provisions on telecommunications and e-commerce, but we need to work further towards a growing convergence about regulatory aspects, about all kinds of potential stumbling blocks that we have to develop fully the potential of international data flows, artificial intelligence, digital platforms, e-commerce, in a way that really presents a prospect of a fair and progressive evolution to the future in the basis of, let's say, healthy competition and not being taken hostage by, let's say, entities that act a little bit as gatekeepers and do not really promote in reality in the future a very balanced sharing of the revenues of the digital transformation. Well, to avoid taking more time of the coming speakers, I would like just to take the opportunity to make public our engagement at the European Union in pursue and develop our cooperation with Brazil, not only at governmental level, but also within engagement of market actors and other stakeholders across both sides of the Atlantic. Thank you again to FGV for organizing this valuable event. And I'm sure that this will be not only a way of showing what we are doing, but also stimulating many of the people that are following us to work and identify interesting partnerships for the future. Many thanks to you. Back to Luca. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for this very encouraging introduction. And now I see that Gorete Pereira Paulo is back online. So Gorete, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Luca. I apologize to everyone, but I'm having some problems with my internet today. So I'd like to say good morning to everybody who is listening to us. Good morning to all the panelists. And I'd like to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the program, the work program that was disseminated by the European Commission this week, where we can find some references from...
The quality, sorry, is very bad. Look, I don't know what happened. The quality.
Sorry?
Yeah, we have some connection problems. Maybe if you try to stay closer to the microphone, it may help. Or let's see if it can. Yes.
It's better now?
Better, definitely better. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So I was saying that I'd like just to point out some mentions to digitalization that are included in the work program that was launched this week by the European Commission for the next research and innovation program. So I will share my screen here with you. And just to mention some remarks about the program. So, as I mentioned, the work program was launched this week on Tuesday. And if we take a look at this program, we see that digitalization is a transversal thing. If you look at the pillar 2, you have the global challenges in European industrial competitiveness, and you have all the clusters: health, culture, creativity and inclusive society, civil security for society, digital industry and space, climate, energy and mobility, food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and environment. Even that we have a direct mention to digital in the cluster 4, if you look at the work program, you see that digitalization is a question that is transversal and has impacts on all the themes that are mentioned here, and you can find elements of digitalization in all the clusters that I mentioned here. As the program was launched last Tuesday, we just had time to have a quick look, but we choose to mention here some calls and destinations that are included in the program, and they mention Brazil, or they mention that is strongly encouraged to have international cooperation. So I think that these calls and destinations should be looked with a lot of attention, that could represent opportunities for partnership for institutions in Brazil, as Fundação Getúlio Vargas and other academic institutions. So if you look at health, we have a mention to Brazil to participate in the Global Alliance for Chronic Disease. And we have two calls. One of them explicitly mention AI, that's clinical validation of artificial intelligence solutions for treatment and care. And this call specifically, you have mentioned to international cooperation. If you consider living and working in a health promoting environment, you see that this destination has a lot of calls that consider digital tools to improve and to promote a health environment. If you look at the cluster about creative and inclusive society, that is the cluster that is about social science and humanities, you see that you have a call that's politics and governance in a post-pandemic world, where you have encouragement for international cooperation. So it's important to also mention that the social science and humanities issues, which are the focus of Fundação Getúlio Vargas, they are in this program, Horizon Europe, even more transversal. If you compare the existing program, Horizon Europe, and the last program, Horizon 2020, you see that you have social science and humanities as a transversal component. You have civil security for society, that is a theme, that is a cluster which includes cybersecurity, which is a thing that I know that's very dear for Luca. I know that he likes to study that. So that's including the cluster about civil security for society. Climate, energy, and mobility, you have mentioned to Brazil as part of the clean energy transition program for emerging economies. So there is a clear mention of Brazil on that. And in the destination, climate science in response for transformation towards climate neutralization, you have encouragement for international cooperation. If you look at the cluster about digital and industry, that is specifically about digitalization, you have one specific destination that is a human-centered and ethical development of digital and industry technologies that is about all the calls in this are about the social science component in digitalization, the impacts of digitalization, the economic and social impacts of digitalization, and also themes like the bias that you have in AI, the potential bias that you have in AI for gender and race, for example. So this question about ethics, bias of digital tools and AI, for example, are the main topic of this destination, human-centered and ethical development of digital and industrial technology. Food, bioeconomy, natural resource, agriculture, and environment. you have a call that's specific about digital transformation, that is understanding the impacts of and the opportunities offered by digital transformation, emerging technology, and social innovation on biodiversity. So there is specific mention on that. And also in this call, you have encouragement for international cooperation. So as I mentioned, digitalization is something that is transversal in the whole program, in the whole Horizon Europe program. And I think that this workshop can contribute talking about and discussing some aspects that are included in the program and where you have encouragement for participation of Brazil and international cooperation in general. So my message here is to consider the emphasis that the Horizon Europe, the Science Innovation Program, gives to digitalization and their impacts. Thank you very much, Luca. Thank you very much. And again, I apologize for any trouble with the sound and imaging. Sorry about that.
Correct. Thank you. I don't know, Luca, if I can. Yes.
Yes, please go ahead, and then you can also.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And if I may, before to pass the floor to our friend Felipe Batista, which is a permanent representation of Portugal to the EU. Goret, I know that you are a very strong person in the very good term of the word. So a person who really does things, and we know much important is the delivery and the commitment that you have in this important field. I have one comment specific on this area, because I believe that research and development cooperation is very important, because so far I understood Brazil is not an associated country of Horizon. So we believe that Brazil should join Horizon Europe. Brazil should become an associated country. You know that we have so far Norway, Israel, Turkey, Canada, and the UK and Switzerland are discussing. And I think this would be very important, because this could benefit many Brazilian organizations, also like yours, but also industry, SMEs, research center. And this will increase the cooperation in more permanent way. So we count also on your strong advocacy and the importance that FGV has in Brazil, but also abroad, because I think this is a big occasion for us, and would be good if Brazil could join Horizon Europe. We could do an important step forward. I don't know if you want to say something on this, otherwise I pass immediately the floor to Felipe. Goret, any reaction on this suggestion? If not, because I'm very sorry, but you understand why we need a very good infrastructure, because I don't know if it's our fault or your fault, but the quality, also when Carlos was speaking, was very difficult, Carlos, the sound was very bad. I don't know what is the problem. Okay, let me pass immediately the floor now to Felipe Batista, permanent representation of Portugal to the EU. We wanted, and we thank them very much. I have to say, I'm a person who's in Brussels since many years, but I never saw a presidency like Portugal such active. The presidency of Portugal has been tremendous, and in particular in the digital sector, they did so many things. And so, first of all, we should thank them for what they are doing, what they did. And Felipe, please tell us, as you see, also the future development relation with Brazil, which we know is very important also for Portugal.
Hi, Luigi. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, Felipe. Thank you.
Okay, good. So I'm on my mobile, and I hope that well, at least we tried to solve that connectivity problem with the link, with the new link of the Link cable to Brazil. So I think that at least in the coming years, that problem will be solved. That's our hope. First of all, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the kind words. I mean, we tried to do our best during our presidency. It was indeed very active and very demanding, but at the end, I think everyone, all the stakeholders, in particular the Commission, but also the member states, were very happy with the outcome. Just 2 weeks, if that we are better now at the end of these 6 months than we were at the beginning, and especially when it comes to the relations with Brazil, it's without a doubt a key element on the transatlantic relations. I mean, everyone has been talking about the importance of the United States relationship. In our case, for Portugal, I mean, it's without doubt much more important relations are with Brazil and with Latin America, and I think the pinnacle of this image is link cable. I mean, we used to say that without a proper infrastructure, it's impossible to develop digital relations. And so now we have this new cable that links Brazil to Portugal, which we believe that will be the first milestone on a much larger strategy that we also put forward during the Digital Day. You may remember that it was the European Data Gateway Platform strategy that basically tries to enable Europe for the coming years and the challenges that we have to face, notably in terms of data flows, but also in terms of relations between the different continents, between Europe and the different continents. On the particular case of the whole background of Link, it's also focused on research, as you know. I mean, it's part of the Bella program, which is a very important program that we believe that in the coming years will benefit at all. I mean, not only Europe, but both sides of the cable, because it will empower and enhance research at the university level. So we are looking forward to see the outcomes of this interaction in terms of knowledge, in terms of research and development, and reach that we have now, because the previous cable, as you know, is coming into the end of life. So with this new cable, I think we have a huge opportunity to enhance the relations between Europe and Latin America. And obviously, goes without saying, Portugal is looking to it in a very particular way, because the two end points of this relation between the two continents are obviously Brazil and Portugal. So our expectation is that with this, we can come closer in terms of economic relations as well, but also this will give a huge push in terms of the exchange of digital services. Because I mean, when you look into the differences between Europe and Latin America, I mean, they are not as big as they were before, especially in terms of digital skills, digital services. I think it's pretty obvious to everyone that we are very, very close together. So we can profit both from this leverage that we have in our hands. Taking advantage of the high skills in terms of digital that Brazil have, and also other members from Latin America. I could point out Colombia, for instance. They have an enormous success in terms of e-government, but also Mexico. We can profit both ways with this approach, and without this new cable, this would not be possible. So we really hope that apart from this cable, also joining the idea of the European Data Gateway strategy, we can also bring more value to this game, if I can use the expression, because we expect that Europe can become the center platform of international connectivity between all continents. So we are looking forward for this next decade. We also have on our hands a digital compass that was presented this the beginning of this year by the Commission. So bringing the two things together, the aims that we have in terms of the challenges to tackle in the next decade, plus the deployment of this new infrastructure, For sure, in 10 years, if we could have a seminar like this one, we will be making the evaluation of the developments that we achieve in the next coming 10 years. And I think the outcome will be very impressive with clear gains and outputs, positive outputs for both sides, because I mean, there is an importance link and historical reasons as well between the two continents, which now I believe that they will boost up based on digital. And I'll stop here because I don't want to take much longer. And of course, I'll be available for any questions or any doubts that you may put forward.
Felipe, thank you very much for your very clear what you said. And I think I repeat, I think the work of the presidency has been excellent. And I hope also that we launch this idea this afternoon that Brazil should join Horizon Europe, because we see benefit for both sides, and in this way Brazil could benefit also the European funding, and we could do joint research in more, in more extensive way. So this is an idea we would like very much to push. Obviously, it's a decision of the government, it's not of the private stakeholder, but I think it's our we should push for such kind of cooperation, because we see that we can have only benefit from such kind of cooperation. And we hope, as you said, that with Ella Link, the quality of our connection will be better, because today we are really suffering. Sometimes it's very difficult to hear people that are speaking. Thank you, Felipe. Thank you very much for your availability. And now let me pass the floor. We can start the first panel, and let me introduce the first speaker. We spoke many times today about Ella Link. I know that is the company of the day, because after many years this miracle happened. Finally, we have the connection. We'll have the connection between Europe and Brazil. Will be a physical connection, but it's also a digital connection. And I would like very much to pass the floor to Philippe Dumont, and if he could explain the project of the company and the future opportunity that all of us we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dumont. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. And Luigi, I think it will take more than just a little submarine cable to improve connectivity, in fact. Yes. But you know that well, I suppose. I will just be a contributor to that. Anyway, let me share a few slides. I know I did not prepare a lot of them. 1 second. Voila. Okay. I hope you see that. Do you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. So just for the people that are watching the stream here, and a little reminder of what is Ella Link. It's a physical infrastructure. It's a cable made of steel, copper, fiber optic, and some plastic. Okay, it is a 6,000 kilometer product system, which makes submarine cable usually the longest human-made system you can find on the Earth. This one for the subsea part starts in Sines, which is a small town 150 kilometers south of Lisbon, and ends at this moment in Fortaleza. In order to reach out its customers, we have subsea or terrestrial extensions in Europe to Lisbon and Madrid and Marseille, where we reach out to some exchanges. Exchanges usually are owned and operated by big companies, big name. I will name them because they are our partners, Equinix or Interactions. And the good things about these exchanges is that you have already a massive amount of customers already present in these premises. So the way to connect to the submarine cables, to Ella Link in particular, is quite easy. Okay. And on the other part of the Atlantic, in Brazil. We are having presence in Sao Paulo and Rio. Here again, it's important to, I mean, we always talk about digital and we think about bits, you know, flowing, but remember, all of that is supported by physical infrastructure, and connectivity is probably the most important access and the most expensive one most of the time, okay? This cable is 150 million euro investment, quite a big amount of money. It took 8 years to develop, commercially speaking, and 2.5 years to build. It is in service since beginning of June, and the way you finance this is not easy. This route did not exist as a direct route before. The way traffic, in fact, is still going on at this moment from Europe to Latin America most of the time is through the United States of America. So it would be like being in Sao Paulo and reaching Paris or Madrid through Atlanta or New York, and that would be the only way. But in fact, before LLink arrived, it was really the way data would go. That sounds incredible, especially when you know the ties, cultural, scientific, or business, which exist already between South America, Latin America, and Europe. But it was what it was. And it's even more interesting, it's a more interesting point when you know that Europe already has the #1 position in terms of carrying the traffic in and out in the world. It carries more or less 50% of the total international traffic in and out. So that's what LLink is, an infrastructure that connects the two continents, and in fact it connects to internet exchange places and data center. We should note first here that Fortaleza is a digital jewel for Brazil, right? It may not be known for many people, but Fortaleza already has 13 cables arriving in this place, which probably makes Fortaleza on the top 3, top 5 of the digital hub in this world. And it's not the case for Sines, but we're working on it. On the way to Fortaleza from Sines, we are connecting Funchal, the Majora Islands, and Praia in Cape Verde. And we hope to connect very soon Casablanca in Morocco and Mauritania. If you talk about the financing of that infrastructure, I must say Europe has been very important to us in many aspects. The first one is that our first customer, the one that supported us over the years of development, was Bella Consortium, made of Géant and Red Clara, the research and education networks of Europe and Latin America, and South America. I think without these people, without the trust on this project, that infrastructure would never ever have come to life. That's important to note. And the underlying need was, as some people said before, scientific needs. The other important element, body that supported LLink was the EIB, the European Investment Bank. European Investment Bank is the #1 investor into the fund, the financial sponsor that is behind LLink, and has been extremely important in financing some of the investments made by our customers, and in particular Capo Verde. Okay, so here I see LLink somehow as the incarnation of the UE political objectives around digital, and that's probably why we've heard so much about LLink during the Portugal presidency, because of that, because it's a key concrete incarnation of what I believe Europe wants to do in many other places, technology and instances. If you look now about LLink, it does bring another perspective. When you think about data, you usually think about the US, which which is true at this moment. Why I'm saying this? Because a lot of the content is being driven by the Facebooks and Google of the world, okay? But if you look at infrastructure, one thing is important: latency. Latency is the amount of time data will take to go back and forth between 2 points. Technical people will call it RTD, round trip delay, that it's measured in milliseconds. Look at Fortaleza and Sines, okay? And you see that Fortaleza is as close as it is from Miami, which is a main digital hub already, than it is from Sines or Lisbon, okay? And it's interesting to say this because at this moment, most of the digital flow makes it between Fortaleza and Miami. Why? I don't know. That's a question. It is what it is, but it does bring the attention about the relationship between South America and Europe and the ambition or the perspective that such cable brings to the businesses of these two continents. There is a lot more to do, which is not being addressed. The other thing also is that when you are developing these hubs, you do provide some interesting, interesting facts. The first thing is that if you are in Latin America and you want to reach out to Asia, the shortest path will be through Europe, through Lisbon, Sines, Lisbon, Marseille, and then down to Singapore or Hong Kong, which are big hubs. It is not through the United States and then after crossing the Pacific, Japan and the rest. These things, unfortunately, or fortunately for the future of the relationship between our two continents, okay, are not this way at this moment. Most of the data goes to the US and then goes to the rest. There is some sort of a US-centric network, okay, that brings everything to the United States. And again, I think it's just bring a fact that there is a growing opportunity of having relationship being developed between South America and Europe, whether it is business, cultural, or scientific. And I think that's all for me. I think it was a way to, there was a few slides to express my thanks to the Europe and Brazil for the support. I think it was very important, very key. I do believe that we are bringing with LLink something new, something that should be reviving the ambitions of the two continents to collaborate a lot more. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer the questions, if any.
Philippe, thank you very much. Before to give the floor to pass the floor to Luca and to the second speaker, I have just one question for you. First of all, thank you for this presentation, for this great initiative. I'm sure that will be a great success. But I have just one question. What you already said something, but why took so long? What has been the main difficulties? Financial difficulties? So in the first, okay, because you said you took two and a half years to build the infrastructure, but why talk so long? What has been the main difficulty? Because this I think is interesting also to understand. Yes, please.
It's a private system, right? So it's not financed by the investment or the capex of Sparkle or Telsus or the Facebook and the Google, which all have their own business plan and return on investment. So this is a project, it's project finance for those that know what it means behind. Okay, so if you look at that and you only think about the traffic going from UE to Brazil and vice versa, it is very, very difficult to put facts and hard data on, because that route does not exist. So it's like building a highway in the middle of nowhere, and you have guys asking to you how many cars will go through. You just don't know. You don't know. it's an infrastructure. So I think over the first years of development, people have already developed that highway, UE to Brazil. I think the last years, we made it successful because we valued the route by connecting new places. So we value the route not for the capacity it brings, but for the connectivity it delivers. That is to say, connecting to Madeira, connecting to Cape Verde, connecting tomorrow to Mauritania and to Morocco. These things are very important. The people in these places, they don't want to have like multi-terabits of data. That's not important. They don't need it. What they need is 1, 2, 3 cables, because the way they see the economy is that going to digital, and what is important is reliability more than capacity. And reliability is about having more than 1 connections, 2 or 3. So this is where you value this route, because this route goes along the west coast of Africa, okay? Passes Madeira, the island of, Tenerife, for instance, Canary Islands. And I said again, Casablanca, Mauritania, and Cape Verde. So that was this thinking of, making the best out of the route and bringing money into the table. That was by connecting these things. So if you add in the business case, the amount of money you can make by selling capacity between the 2 continents with a certain level of confidence, plus all the money you're getting from connecting all these islands and remote countries, you start to have a business case that flies, and you start to embark a financial sponsor and money coming from EIB. That I guess is the very simple reason why it took so long. Okay, it is the reason.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philippe.
I pass the floor to Luca. Thank you, Luca.
Yes. Thank you very much, Philippe, for the excellent presentation. We also received some very good feedback from our chat. Let me remind to all who are following us that they can also post questions and comments on Slido. We have a link in our YouTube video. And then before we pass to the next speaker, I wanted to comment on what Philippe was saying, because there is a very extremely important element that has been raised by Philippe and also by Carlos, which is that now we have this wonderful opportunity of the ELA-Link cable. This basically means that there is incredible connectivity between Sines and Fortaleza, but then we still have to do all the rest and to really reap out the benefits of it, right? And there is the lack of access is something that has become very visible over the past year of pandemic, and not only in a middle income country like Brazil, but also in a very developed area as the EU. And if we take the case of Brazil, 70% of households are connected, but you still have 30% of the population, so 60 million people that are absolutely not connected. And then if you check how the people are connected, only 30 to 45% of the population has access to a computer. What does it mean? It means that people primarily access via mobile. And then even if you bring all this new wonderful infrastructure, at the end, all the data that are collected and the traffic and the creativity, the content that is created goes through a couple of mega applications, dominant applications, as they are, those applications are those that are primarily used via mobile. On the other hand, if we were to foster also connectivity through laptops to fixed devices, people would have the possibility to be creators, to create content, new services, to be the new Google and Facebook that now is very difficult to challenge. So that is a very important point that I think we should also bring into the discussion, the fact that we need meaningful connectivity, and this is, I'm sure that Natalia, next speaker, will speak about this thoroughly, as it is a concept that A4AI brought into the discussion. And then a very last point, which is about the new infrastructure that are going to be created. There is a lot of hype around 5G, but 5G requires huge investments. And again, those investments, if we take into consideration consumers, will be deployed in urban areas with high-income population that are already connected. So investments in 5G with regard to consumers have the potential to create even more digital divides, to exacerbate digital divides. The true leverage, the true driver of investments for 5G, I think, especially in Brazil, will be the industrial internet and the IoT for agricultural purposes and automatization of agriculture. And here is where we will see also in the last panel, the things start to be particularly interesting, because there will be a lot of investment that will be deployed in the next couple of years for these fields. But again, we are not yet considering those 60, 70 million people that are not yet connected and are the hardest to connect. The easy one were the 70% that is already connected, that lives in urban, wealthy areas. For the other ones, we need more creative solutions. And at the end of the next panel, we'll also speak about community networks as a very interesting model that creates crowdsourced infrastructure that generates new digital ecosystems at the local level, and that could be considered a very important tussle of this new scheme of digital connectivity, which is far from being simple. So having provided these couple of further elements of complexity for our debate, let me just now give the floor to Natalia Fodic, who was previously a colleague at the Center for Technology and Society, and now she is a senior specialist at the Alliance for Affordable Internet. Please, Natalia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Luca. It's really a distinct pleasure to be here. Hopefully in a year we can be in either Fortaleza or Sena celebrating the 1-year launch. I mean, this is an idea for Philip. And not, only meeting virtually. But as Luca mentioned, my name is Natalia Fodic. I currently work for the Alliance for Affordable Internet, which is a part of the World Wide Web Foundation. And we are the largest technology coalition in the world. And our goal is precisely to drive prices of broadband down through strengthening policy and regulatory frameworks around the world. I think that one important thing to highlight is that while I am Brazilian myself, and we don't have projects at the moment, projects or coalitions that we articulate in Brazil. So it's like a disclaimer, right? Because we are now working in Brazil at the moment, although we are also involved in Latin America and other countries, and we follow closely the developments over here. And well, mainly we are in two countries in Latin America and Asia and Africa. And I will try to be brief because I know that we are running out of time. And just a quick comment prior to starting my presentation. I don't work for Elalink, but I can say that it sounds to me that it hasn't taken that long because, the prior question was like, why did it take that long? I would say in sort of a defense of Elalink, it hasn't taken that long. Why? When I was working for example, for the Inter-American Development Bank, I saw similar projects that took much longer when it involved several countries. And also, as Philip was mentioning, when you need project finance, this type of project finance, right? So that was my thought when I was listening to that debate. So in regards to we have some pretty interesting studies that calculate, for example, the extent to which you need which investments, like the numbers of investments that you need to connect the world and different countries, including Brazil. So we'll bring some points of data here just to illustrate this whole debate, right? And again, a disclaimer is that, of course, there depends on the methodology that we have used for these calculations, but it provides at least an idea of the demand in terms of investments and what is happening in Brazil. In order to connect the humanity until 2030, we will need $428 billion in the world. And in Latin America, this number is 47. But the interesting thing is that if you sum up what Brazil plus Mexico need, that it's like half of this total amount in Latin America. And Brazil is $11 billion to connect the whole country by 2030. It's interesting also to mention that in Brazil, different than other developing countries, the operational expenditures take a large percentage of, it's not only CapEx, right? We already have a lot of infrastructure deployed for, 2-3 decades, but the operational expenditures take a lot of that. Also, just to briefly highlight what one of the needs, although we do have a pretty high percentage of access, as you were mentioning, what we call 1 for 2 affordability target, which is something we were advocating for, and then it was adopted by the UN Broadband Commission in 2018. According to that standard, which calculates how much you pay for 1 giga of internet, for only 40%, 40, of the Brazilian population pays a decent amount of their gross income, monthly income for internet. So generally 60% of the population pays 3% to 7% of their monthly income per gigabyte, which is a lot. I think but then there's some good news coming out of Brazil too lately. Well, one of the things I always like to highlight, and it's also highlighted in the book we authored a few years ago on broadband in Brazil, we have a lot of small and medium players, ISPs in Brazil, which is something pretty unique. Although, of course, the market share is much smaller in compared to the larger players. You have 5,000 to 6,000 small and medium ISPs, which help spreading and connecting parts of Brazil where many times the larger ones don't reach. I think that I was talking about how much money we need, but in Brazil, we know that a lot of times money is not really an issue. We do have money, and we have collected over the years so much money. I will give precise numbers in a second, but we have collected through our universality fund so much money for the past 20 years. Actually, and this is a number from March 2021, 23 billion reais had been collected. That means around $4.5 billion, right? So have been collected by the Universality Fund, but have not been spent in all these infrastructure for various reasons. One of the reasons is that the legal framework was not allowing that to happen because it was mainly focused on telephony. Now, finally, after years of a bill being discussed, this has been changed, allowing for broadband infrastructure to this funds to be used towards broadband infrastructure, which is a great thing that, great news from the past months. However, we know that it's not going to stop there, right? Now we will have other challenges, and the challenge to check whether these funds will actually be implemented continues. Also, we have 2 years ago, we had a whole restructuring of the legal model, the legal framework in Brazil, for telecommunications through a different law that was also discussed for several years. And then, as I mentioned, we are not currently working in Brazil. However, we follow what the civil society groups are saying, and also some of the organizations that are doing the checks and balances, right, of powers in Brazil. When we know that the fact that the legal system has shifted from concession to authorization, that's like talking about admin law, right, administrative law. This creates some challenges. For example, civil society groups are concerned that you will have the principle of continuity of public services might hinder the universality of this connection. So, and also there are some other aspects related to how the resources that were invested throughout the past several years in some public private companies, how much that actually, I mean, the calculations, because the system is going towards some parts were public-private system, and now it's going towards a private system, right? So calculating the resources that companies sort of owe to the public sector is another main issue. So basically, we should make sure that these legal changes do not hinder universality of connection, and which is one of the concerns. And I also have mentioned about the concept we are advocating for, which is meaningful connectivity, right? And by meaningful connectivity, which sounds pretty simple, but it's important to establish, to go from conversations and policies that establish and track access or no access towards a more complex evaluation in which you have you understand the level of disconnection, right? We know nowadays that, for example, if the United Nations considers that you are connected if you have access at least once every 3 months. We know that if we connect only every 3 months, that's like really not going to work for us, right? We work on a daily basis nowadays through the internet. And then by meaningful connectivity, just to finalize, like what I mean by that, we mean that you need to have a fast connection, which is compatible with at least the 4G speed. Again, 4G here is just like a way to measure the speed, but not necessarily a mobile connection, right? To have through an appropriate device, which is a smartphone at least. Again, we are talking about a global target. And then, of course, Brazil is more advanced in many of these things, but if you need minimum levels of global connectivity, this is the way, one of the ways through which you can compare. And then you need to be able to connect every day, not only every so often, right? And through at least a fixed connection at home or your work or school with enough data. So we know that also you were mentioning that Brazil has 70% of connections, but we know that in a certain percentage of the 70%, people don't have enough data. They just run out of data really quickly for various reasons. And that's a problem too. So, and again, using Philip's phrase, reliability is more important than capacity. Yes, that's true, but just you need, depends on what you're comparing, right? Capacity is also important for people to be able to have meaningful connectivity. I will stop here, but
yes.
I'm looking forward to the debate.
Natalia, thank you very much. We have an expression, we say that the devil is in the details. So, and you are right. And what you address is very important. Congratulations. Reduced connection inequality is extremely important. And I think this we should dedicate more effort. Now, let me pass the floor to another guest, Eduardo Grizendi. Eduardo Grizendi is a director of Rede Nacional de Pesquisa, and it's impressive how important is this institution in Brazil. It's a digital platform for education, research, and innovation in Brazil. Just two numbers, 800 connected organizations and more than 4 million users. And I hope, Eduardo, that you would agree with us and you would support our proposal to Brazil joining Horizon Europe, because I think also your organization could benefit from this. Eduardo, the floor is for you. Please stay in the time of 7-8 minutes, otherwise we are running out of time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Eduardo Grizendi, CTO at RNP, and I would like to comment about some points beyond ELA link cable, mainly about Bella. I would like to talk some points about Bella that we are deploying in Latin America, in Brazil. Well, mainly first about our international links. I would like to show that we have not only the connection directly with the United States, but right now we have one connection with Africa using the SAX Angola cable. And basically we have 3 imports product we participate. And when we say I am saying RNP and Rede Clara. RNP is the Brazilian National Research and Education Network, and the Rede Clara is the Latin American operation of the NRANS. And in this moment, we have these 3 imports international collaboration that with this international collaboration, we have not only one, but more than one, and we can say when 100 giga channels. For example, with United States, we have one cooperation in Light project. With this, we have 2 channels of 100 giga in the submarine cable Monet, and we have and we share one connection of the 100 giga to Africa using the SAX cable, I said. And right now, it's very good for us sharing this ELA link cable in the Bella project. We have more 2 global exchange point, academic global exchange point, one in Fortaleza, we say SAX, and the other in São Paulo. Well, about the Bella project. Bella project for us is, has 2 parts. One is Bella S, basically is using the submarine cable, ELA link submarine cable, and Bella T. Bella T is the infrastructure that we are deploying to canalize traffic from Bogotá to Fortaleza, across several other countries in South America right now. But I will show that we are planning to extend this in the other part of Latin America. In both infrastructure, Bella S and Bella T, we have multiple channels. Bela Erce, we have, and we say we, I say Jean and Rede Clara, all the environs involved in this project. We have almost, in Bela Erce, almost 40 optical channel in the LLink cable. In Bela T, we have multiple channels, depends of the parts of this infrastructure that we are saying, because we have different countries, different backbone involved in this route from Fortaleza to Bogotá, and but not only one. We have multiples. For example, in Porto Alegre to Buenos Aires, we have 6 optical channels. In Brazil, we have 20 optical channels from Fortaleza to Porto Alegre, and so. Well, to deploy this part of infrastructure, part of the Bela T in Brazil, we have one project, internal project in RDP, that's the construction, deploying 100 giga backbone. And in this moment, with this topology, we can see here that we are with several optical channels with 100 giga. For example, northeast and southeast and south. We are in this backbone is in construction, and our target is to complete in the 2022 to canalize with roots principle and redundancy to deploy this part of the Bela T, basically from Fortaleza to Buenos Aires. Well, to construct this, our internal backbone that canalize this Bela T parts of the project in Rede Clara, we established several agreements with power companies, electrical transmission companies. And for example, we have agreements with Chefs, Furnas, and Eletrosul, are main important companies in Brazil. And with this is one agreement for use of unparalleled fiber for 20 years. And with this, we have a rights of use of this part. And we illuminate, for example, in Northeast is chassis, and all these routes showed is ready, is illuminated. We are illuminating part of Furna in this moment. We have illuminated, so also Eletrosul. Well, it's not different in the other countries, in others in Latin America. In the same time that we are deploying the one backbone in 100 giga to canalize the Bela T traffic in the Bela T project, we have in the same time in Reúna in Chile, is the NRA in Chile, Cedia in Ecuador, and Renata in Colombia. We don't, in this moment, Argentina is not part of the Bela T. It's the same in Peru. We are working to join these countries and this NRA, but not in this moment. In fact, Peru doesn't have one NRA. Argentina has, but it's not integrated in Bela T. But even this, not with Argentina participate of this Bela T, we deployed one route from Porto Alegre to Santiago, Porto Alegre, Buenos Aires, Santiago, and in this moment we are completing Fortaleza to Santiago, Fortaleza Santiago by Porto Alegre and Buenos Aires. In the same time, where we are completing the interconnection between Colombia and the Serbia. In this moment, we are completing this Bela T with one connection direct from Quito in Ecuador and Bogota. Maybe one solution connecting Panama City and Panama City, Bogota. Well, this is the one slide to show that we wait to conclude a Bela project for Latin America, and with Ela Link. Right now we use SACs to interconnect with Africa. We are using Modé cable with light project to interconnect in United States, with the Bela T infrastructure in South America. And we are preparing one proposal to extend this Bela T for Central America and part of the Caribbean. And in this moment, we are preparing this project, and we are considered to funding applying to European Commission. Well, this is our product, and that we have. Part of this is deployed, is in use, is operational, and the part we are planning basically to expand the Bela T to Latin America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Oh, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. And it's excellent actually to have this kind of data. One of the frequent complaints that the research community has is that the private players do not always share data about where the access points are and where other networks could be plugged in. And it is really excellent to have this openness on your side and to have accessibility to this very important and meaningful data, also to build new projects based on the excellent infrastructure you are developing. And now speaking about development of infrastructure and connectivity projects on the Brazilian side, let me ask Professor Moacir Martucci, who is a professor at the São Paulo University, where he directs the Brazil-Europe Institute at the Polytechnic School, and he has been a key figure of Brazil-EU cooperation over the past years with regard to research initiatives. So it is really an excellent pleasure to have you here with us today. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luca, for kind words, and it's a pleasure to stay here. Thank you very much for inviting me for this panel. I'm very happy in participating in this panel because it's a kind of celebration of the fiber connection between Brazil and EU. And I remember at the first time of the beginning of this negotiation with very close friends of mine, with Mário Campo Largo, with Virgílio, Michael Staton. It's a very great pleasure to stay here and celebrating this connection. I'm very proud of this work. It's not only a technical work; it's a political one, and very good job. Congratulations for all the teams that worked on this project. So, but I want to talk with you about the instruments of collaboration.
So if you allow, I will share my presentation. It's okay? Is it okay for you?
Yes, we can see perfectly.
Yeah. Okay, this is we have in the collaboration between Brazil and the EU some instrument that you can use. So we have the coordinate calls, we have the sectorial dialogues, we have the research infrastructure collaboration, we have the optical fiber net that we are talking about today, and the individual projects. So this is part of the collaboration between Brazil and you, mainly with the European Commission in the Horizon Europe project.
Moacir, sorry if I interrupt you. Do you agree that Brazil should join Horizon Europe?
Yes, I will show you the last slide that I have here. Look at the red statement here.
Very
Looking
good.
forward for
Very
being,
good.
okay, this I think that I have answered your question. And yes, we are working on that. Now the Brazilian, now the Brazilian researchers, the Brazilian institutions are working on that with the Brazilian government. But the association is not only a Brazilian issue or a European Commission issue. It is an issue for both. Both should to work together to establish a win-win agreement for associating the program in the program. I think that it will be possible. I guess it's my.
Monsieur, sorry if I interrupt you. Can I ask you to put your presentation in full screen if you can?
Oh yes, of course. Sorry for that. Okay, that's okay now. Okay, so let's talk about the coordinated calls. The coordinated calls have been a very great success in the collaboration on ICT. I'm talking about, and the process is a win-win process between European Commission and the Brazilian government, and we have in the Brazilian side two ministries: the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation, and the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs, the Itamaraty. And in the other side of the Atlantic, we have the European Commission and the DG Connect. So how it works? The budget for each call, the budget is negotiated. The call is launched by both sides at the same time. There is a joint selection made by made by European and Brazilian reviewers. The grant agreement is half to half. Now, in the last calls, we have the managing in the Brazilian side of RNP, and in the European side by the consortium in the European Commission. So the project starts at the same time, and they have the same monitoring procedures. So this is a very interesting because we have only one project, Brazil Europe, with joint results, with very good results for both sides, with good impact, sorry, for both sides. So this is very good to establish a real collaboration on research, because you have good impacts on both sides of the Atlantic. So this is a great success. I hope that we have more more coordinated calls in the next future. So this is the history. Now it's we have here 4 coordinated calls and about 20 projects. So on the both sides, Europe and Brazil applied about 50 million euro, 25 each side. So it's a good instrument to collaborate, and it's a good instrument that we are using on ICT issues. So another point is the sectorial dialogue. Sorry for I'm seeing now that the title of the dialogues is in Portuguese. Sorry for that. So, but we have some dialogues on ICT. This is the dialogues on ICT. We have the dialogues in other topics. But in ICT, we have the 5G, the first one here, the 5G and the future of telecommunications, and also I have on IoT, yes, the last one. The impact of the 5G technologies and IoT in regions of low density population. Luca told about 5G and the challenge of 5G here in Brazil. So we are working together, Europe, on 5G since 2000 to 2016. It's a long-term collaboration on that. So we have I don't have the exact figure, but I think that we have 3 or 4 projects that have studied 5G technology, collaborative projects.
If I may, on this point, I have just one common question for you, because this is very important. We recognize the importance of such a dialogues and successful. But what do you think we can do in order to further boost the visibility and how to involve more other private stakeholder, industry? What do you think should be done in order to give more importance?
This is a very good question. The dialogue is an action between the Brazilian government and the European Commission. And inside of the dialogues, they use to involve the industry. And the dialogue, the main purpose of the dialogue is to search new partners and to find new challengers to collaborate. So this is the point. The dialogue is in my own opinion, the dialogue is the beginning of the collaboration in a new area. So, and it's a very good instrument, and the results of the dialogues and the collaborative projects usually is present to the society in ICT week that take place in Brasilia every year. Last year was a virtual one, but we have presential. 2 presential meetings and 1 virtual meeting. So we have here, for example, this picture is a visit in a farm, in a farm in Europe, maybe in Italy, and we have in here a representative.
It's not COVID.
From, sorry?
It's not COVID, no.
It's not what?
COVID is not COVID.
No, it's not a COVID one. It's this is to preserve the health of the pigs that inside of this barn. So it's not to preserve our lives; it's the pig's life. Yeah, but today we have this kind of course, because the COVID. Yes. So we are looking for the next one now in the new framework in the Horizon Europe to continue this kind of work to search more challenges, to look at the new work programs, to put in the new work to try to include in the new work programs the challenges between Brazil, in this case, and Europe. So another point is the Galileo. Galileo is a very good opportunity for Brazilian institutions, Brazilian industry, to use the Galileo infrastructure, the satellite constellation, to provide services or to provide to get data and so on. So this is another infrastructure point that we can use and collaborate in the development of the idea. So, and the next one and the final one, I'm trying to stay on my time, is the individual project. This is very important because all Brazilian institutions is very welcome in the European project. The point is, if Brazilian institutions join a consortium in a European call, the Brazilian institutions should to funding its participation. How can you do it? The Brazilian CNPq or the Brazilian FAPESP have agreements with the European Commission to fund the Brazilian participation in that. So for that, of course, the Brazilian institution must to apply its project to FAPESP or to CNPq to get the funding here. So this is a very interesting funding because the Brazilian success rate in Horizon 2020 was around 22.5%. If you look at the European rate, is 17.1%. In other words, the Brazilian is more effective in getting funding in the projects than the European in average, of course. So, and now, answering the question, yes, I am looking forward personally to begin an associate that Brazil could be an associate country in the Horizon Europe. Yes, it will be a very good thing for us Brazilians. So, and I want to see a few words about the Brazilian national contact point infrastructure. So we have, oh, it's not here. Yes, we have today for the Horizon Europe this NCP structure for Brazil. So today we are discussing because we have another structure on Horizon Europe, as Goretti show us in the beginning of this webinar. So we are modifying this one to adapt this structure to the new project, to the new program. So we are now working with Itamaraty to contact again the national contact points that is working on Horizon 2020 to know if they agree to act as a contact point in Horizon Europe. Well, this structure is changing, of course, and we have a new structure. And until the end of this month, we intend to have the new structure ready to send it to the European Commission. So this information is important because as the structure is changed, we have to change the structure of the European project, the European program changed. We have to change our structure to maintain the connection between Brazil institutions and the European Commission for each area of knowledge. So I think that's all. I am open to the questions. Thank you very much. And the contacts, if you need, for any point, if you have, for any question of Horizon Europe program, we are very happy to stay in contact with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think your presentation has been really very interesting. And we need also to promote more what is done, because sometimes many things are done, but nobody knows. And thank you very much. And let's hope together with Luca to stay in touch for future projects and future initiatives.
Yeah, you are very right, Luigi, because it's very difficult to make the people knows what we are doing. Very difficult, and we need help on that. Thank you very much.
We have not to connect only infrastructure, use infrastructure to connect, but we have to connect people and projects. Because sometimes we do very good things, but we are not good to communicate, and or communicate things which don't exist. So
we have to improve the communication.
So in this case, we have very good things, and we should improve our capacity. And please count on us and on Luca and FGV. You know, FGV is the most important institution of Brazilian, and also I think should be very honored. And also, what are you doing is very important. So let me now move to the next panel, and I will let me introduce the next speaker and the next company. Now I think Stefano, I don't know if he's already there. Stefano Lorenzi is the chairman of executive chairman of Ufinet. Ufinet is a very interesting company. You will discover in a few moments. But let me say, now we come back to infrastructure issue. We know that I will give you just one number. By 2022, over 60% of GDP will depend on digital technology. So again, back to the point, the importance to have future digital technologies. We know that Europe recently has set as a new, very ambitious target. By 2030, all European families should be connected at least with 1 gigabit, and all the households should be connected by 5G. And we would like to see such kind of very ambitious target also for Brazil. So not only for you, we should go together, and we should work together. Now, in order to do that, we know the importance to speed up the rollout of very high capacity network, but we know at the same time that maybe perhaps we need also new business model, because the old traditional incumbents not always able to speed up and do the investment needed. Therefore, we need new way to do that. And this new model, which in Europe is becoming very popular, is wholesale only, which means, in few words, separate the network from services. Who does it? The network doesn't do the services. It's becoming very popular and is very good because solve at the same time many issues. First, better quality, improve the quality. Second, open access, competition. We have to keep competition. It's very important also for a country like Brazil. And last but not least, more choices for consumer and more affordable prices, because we saw that where such kind of model are used, the prices also become more affordable. So let me immediately give the floor to Stefano, and let me thank for his presence. And I think he will join the presentation and will understand what this company is doing and will do also in Brazil. Thank you very much, Stefano.
Thank you, Luigi. Can you hear me well?
Yes, very good.
And you can see the presentation as well, right?
Yes.
Excellent. So no, thank you, Luigi and Luca, to inviting me. It's really a pleasure to speak about subjects which are really not only make me occupied, but interest me a lot as a person. I was actually listening very carefully at what the presentation from Philippe. You must know that Philippe and I have been colleagues in Alcatel-Lucent many years ago. More than 10 years ago, we were both doing working for Digitalisation in, he was doing submarine and I was doing wireline fiber optic networks. And 10 years after, it looks like we're still doing the same, which could sound boring, but actually, I wanted to say this because this is not only about technology, as Luigi and I think Natalia earlier on pointed out. This is about finding business models to make things happening in real. Technology about submarine, technology about FTTH, fiber to the homes, was already there 10 years ago. The difficulty here is to find the right business model to make it sustainable. And I think, as Luigi was saying, very rightly so, the wholesale-only model, which is really the title of my presentation, is, we think, a very good way to make this happen, especially in a fiber to the homes, which we know is so important, especially nowadays. I think the pandemic has really teach all of us that having good connectivity, which is a combination of bandwidth and latency at home, is crucial. And this obviously counts on submarine cables or long-haul transmission systems as an important piece, but they really need the last mile, the so-called last mile, being there, because if it is not there, you can have the best submarine cables of the world, but still you're going to perceive very bad quality when you are at home or wherever, or at office. So what we did, I mean, Ufinet is a company which is doing wholesale for a long time. Actually, I'm coming from Enel, the energy giant, which decided to embark on telecom, doing wholesale only. And that's why we invested in Ufinet. We became a shareholder in Ufinet because we believe this is not only a very good business model, which can create a lot of value, but a model which can really transform and change the shape of the telecom world, as we know for the last 50 or more years. So let me, so very quickly, I mean, Ufinet is a company which is selling a lot of different products, always as a wholesale, more than 75,000 kilometers of terrestrial networks, and some submarine cables also connecting not Portugal, unfortunately, but Miami and Los Angeles and other places. We sell, as I said, only as an wholesaler. And since we joined Ufinet as a shareholder, we push a lot to expand our business towards FTTH, really bringing the experience that we had done in Italy with Open Fiber. And my next slide here really shows something that Luigi obviously knows very well, which is the experience in Europe is becoming really very interesting around wholesale. I brought here a map which shows a number of different enterprises, businesses that have been created in the last 3 years, let's say, of which Open Fiber is by far the largest. And you see there an impressive increase in household pass, so meaning really houses that can count on fiber if they want, in what is today approximately 11.5 million households across the whole of Italy. And which is also very interesting is that and probably not so expected at the beginning, is that the number of operators, ISPs, that are using this platform is tremendous. I mean, Open Fiber can count on more than 160 agreements year to date, which is really emphasizing the power of platforms, because, and I will explain that better in the following slide, but by means of having the network share and having an open network with pricing model based on pay-per-use, it really allows small operators to compete at the same level with big guys. And this fosters competition, which eventually is a big advantage for end users. So we call about a word which I like a lot, and I think some of the previous speakers, Luke, I believe, has touched on that, democratization of broadband services. Platforms like this, in my view, will allow to bring the same broadband quality, not only in high ARPU areas, which obviously is where everybody will start from, but will allow even more powerfully to go to the areas which today are definitely underserved. Because intrinsically, it's a way of sharing the same infrastructure and making the business case more sustainable. If we now, I wanted to show you, I mean, I'm not going to go to the details here, although I'm in my heart still an engineer and I like speaking about these things, but the building a wholesale access network is not exactly as building a network, FTTH network for a vertical integrated operators. And what we did in Open Fiber and what we are trying to replicate as Ufinet in Latin America is building an innovative architecture, which allows really to offer to each operator who wants to use our network the same experience that they will have if they had built their own network. Which is something that when you speak to operators and to CTOs, they're very sensitive about that. So we're not going to go into the details of this, but this is a very important selling argument to encourage operators, especially large operators, to come on board. We can offer passive, active services. The important thing here is that we want to own, and we are building the network end to end, because in order to have a good control, we need to own the infrastructure from the point of presence to the house, really with a piece of fiber which gets into each single apartment or a house. And this is a guarantee of good quality. And the business model is the other piece which is crucial here. I mean, I think it's critical. What we are offering is a pay-per-use model. So it's really the infra as a service where operators will only pay for what they consume. They don't have to take the risk of building infrastructure upfront. We will take the risk for them. And this is a very powerful element which we believe in the countries where we have already started deploying, including Brazil, will make this wholesale successful, because especially nowadays operators are very capex constrained, and if they have to invest a lot of money and taking risks maybe on a penetration that they will achieve later, it's a difficult sale to do in their houses. And differently, once they come to us, they don't have any commitment to take up front. They pay for what they consume, for the customers they connect. So it's a very powerful tool, which, as I was saying, will foster competition, will make fundamentally the small, mid guys exactly the same as the big guys. And this is why maybe sometimes the big guys don't like this model, because obviously they see this as a threat, naturally so. The other important thing is that not only the SLA, the conditions that we will offer to all operators will be the same, but also the pricing will be the same. And we are very strongly pushing on having what we call an isonomic approach about pricing, with some mechanism of volume discount, of course, but the same to all clients. Now, we believe this, I mean, is in Italy, we have experience. I mean, Luigi knows better than me. This is proven to be a very strong success, generating value for shareholders, but even more value for the country. We believe, I mean, now if we go to the next slide showing Brazil, we did a focus Zoom in São Paulo, in the São Paulo state, where, as you know, Enel is also present with Eletropaulo, and with acquisition of Eletropaulo. And we saw a couple of things here very interesting. The first, I mean, these are the public data from Anatel. I believe there is some people from Anatel later, so they can keep me honest. But the first thing is that the fiber really is showing to be the winner in terms of different access technologies. So over time, fiber is gaining share versus HFC, the cable, which is still very common in Brazil, and obviously copper, which is really lagging behind in terms of performances. So you see here the stats on the upper part of the slide, and really, the people who have got a lot of cable are trying to do upgrades, software upgrades, but obviously fiber, these are just stopgap solution. Fiber will be eventually the absolute winner in the access space. The other interesting thing, which is very specific about Brazil, is what I call the ISP effect. In Brazil, we do have a huge amount of small and medium-sized ISP who have been maybe taking advantage of the big guys who were counting on HFC and copper infrastructure, deploying very quickly and sometimes in a wild way fiber. They have been gaining a lot of market share. And they've been sustaining the growth of broadband line penetration. We show here 12% in 28 months. So this is happening already. Fiber, and thanks especially to the small ISP, is taking advantage versus other technologies. But why we see then the opportunity? And the opportunity, I think, is that deploying a wholesale network will be even further accelerator of the introduction of fiber and fiber to the homes in Brazil in general, and I mean São Paulo here, in the São Paulo state in particular, because by sharing, we will have the opportunity to build better quality network, more stable, more compliant. I mean, this is not a secret. We have a lot of illegal operators who are occupying poles without paying the right of ways. And this is very visible in the poles of São Paulo and in many other places in Latin America. So by building a very good network, share amongst others mechanically brings a much better product with lower unitary cost. Very capillary. These networks today tend to be very selective. We believe, again, back to the democratization, when we deploy, we try to cover more than 90% of the houses where we deploy, so that everybody can have access to the same network. So we believe there is a huge opportunity. And in the last slide, I wanted just to show you what we are doing today. We have started during last year to have a first, let's call it trial, in a region, Osasco of São Paulo. This is live today. We're in commercial operation. Actually, this is the first wholesale operation active today in São Paulo, to my knowledge, in the São Paulo state. And we have a first customer which is happily gaining market share based on our network, and we hope to have more soon. We have also started deploying in the ABC area, which is a very interesting area, where we have a plan of 700,000 HP under construction. We believe 100,000 will be completed by the end of the year. And then we have a greater plan, of course, if things go well, but we believe go well because we see this very, very sound in Brazil. I mean, I put here also what we are doing in other parts of the region. In Bogota, for instance, we already have a deal with an operator where we did a joint venture to deploy 2.5 million households that we already start building. And so in the other important countries where we are as Ufinet and Enel. And I think, we are eventually planning to invest quite a bit of money. I mean, access is the very last drop, the last mile, but cost a lot of money because of mainly outside works. So we're planning to invest hundreds of millions in this technology. But we will do that because we believe that this is really a business that can create value, and more importantly, is really not only good business, but it's critical for fostering the digitalization of the society and the key enabler for cities and countries' digitalization and development. So we're very excited about doing this, and I really look forward to meet you soon in a few months, showing the progress of what we are doing in São Paulo and in the rest of the country.
Stefano, thank you very much for your presentation.
You're
I
welcome.
think all the Brazilians will benefit from this new infrastructure. I can let you know very well that the wholesale only model started in the north of Europe, in Nordic countries. And for example, has been incredible what happened in Stockholm. Hundreds of new companies are offering services, and the city is flourishing with new opportunities. The prices went down. So I think this is something when people, citizens will understand, will be our supporter. And this is not only good for business, it's good for the community and for the, yes, please.
Luigi, on to complete the Stefano talk. We, Rede Clara, have our Central America backbone based on UFNet infrastructure. Do you know Stefano? And we are preparing one project that we say Bella 2030, and we are considering continue our partnership, Rede Clara and UFNet. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very good. Now, thank you again, Stefano, for your participation, and let us know whether we can share your also slide and the presentation with the others. Sure. And now let me pass the floor. I'm very happy, and I think we are also very lucky to have Bernard Barani, is the Deputy Head of Unit at DigiConnect. Bernard is one of the most experienced person inside the European Commission. He has a huge experience in the new network, like for example, 5G. But also he has an international experience, and I think today he will bring us the view of the European Commission. And as I said, recently the Commission has launched this new digital compass, which has a very ambitious target, and I think we should work together with also Brazil in order to understand what we can do to deliver such kind of target, because also Brazil should have an ambitious target. Bernard, the floor is for you.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks
Luigi.
a lot for today's participation, Bernard. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Luigi, for a kind introduction. Can you see my slides or?
Not in the full screen. If you could put in the full screen.
Is it better now?
Yes.
I have to do this side floating stuff. Okay. So I try not to consume too much of your time, so I will concentrate on 5G connectivity where we are in Europe, and what are the main intentions, our main intentions for the period, the upcoming period. And oh, sorry, seems doesn't move. Yeah, voilà. So before I move into this, just to recall that we started to work on 5G around 2012, 2013. At this moment in time, it was primarily in the context of research, and very early we identified the need to have international cooperation with key players, and we obviously identified Brazil as one of the important partners, and since then we have been able to develop fruitful cooperation on research, notably in the context of 5G standard for long-range access, which is something which the standard originally did not take into account, but now is being corrected. But we initiated pilot work with this on this with our Brazilian colleagues. So that was, I think, a good example of interesting and fruitful cooperation. Now, when we look into 5G today, of course, we are not anymore in the research mode. We are in the deployment mode in Europe. And what has happened in Europe is that we announced our plans for 5G deployment in Europe in 2016 with two key milestones. The first milestone was 2020, with the intention to have 5G deployed in at least one city in each and every member state. Then we had a second milestone, end of 2025, to have 5G deployed along all the main transport passes. And now, after the publication or the publication of this new communication of the Commission called the Digital Compass that Luigi mentioned, so this is very recent. It took place in March this year. We have a renewed type of objectives, as Luigi mentioned, to have by 2030, in the context of connectivity, coverage, 5G coverage of all the populated areas, gigabit per second connectivity, and a few other, let's say, indicators which have been defined in terms of, for instance, a number of edge computing nodes, which will support the let's say the implementation and the introduction of advanced 5G services. Now, if we look at where we are today in Europe in terms of commercial 5G deployments, I mean, we are not exactly where we anticipated to be, because not all the member states have deployed today. We have only 24 member states which have fully deployed, let's say, not fully deployed, deployed commercial networks. We have about between 50 and 60 networks operational in Europe. And you can see from the perspective of the spectrum assignments, if we take into account the so-called pioneer bands that Europe identified for 5G deployment, 700 megahertz, C-band, and 26 gigahertz, we have, let's say, for the most popular band, the C-band, a little bit more than 50% of the bands which is assigned. So still a bit of progress to be made. But we are progressing hopefully fast, and of course COVID did not help. What is really missing in Europe at this moment in time is scale. I mean, because the deployments are not very high scale compared to what's happening in Asia, for instance, where base stations are deployed by hundreds of thousands, and we are not yet there.
Bernard, okay, may I just ask you to hide our yes. Videos, so that this dark square that we see disappear. Just hide our the camera parts.
Is it better now?
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sorry for that. Yeah, in the meantime, we have identified with the member states what we call cross-border corridors, which are stretches of motorway that are being made available by the member states to start deploying 5G cross-border in such a way that we move towards our objective of covering the main transport passes by 2025. So 5G, of course, has quite a few, let's say, number of deployment models. We have the traditional license model that has been the classical model for the MNOs, but with 5G now we see a number of private networks being deployed. So these data are maybe a little bit outdated because they date back to end of last year. But we see several models now which are very interesting in the context of 5G deployment for the verticals. So either they get the, let's say, capabilities to traditional MNOs, or there are other capabilities to have some 5G capabilities through so-called neutral hosts. So this is a model which is investigated in several member states. And also completely private networks are also being deployed for enterprises. Knowing that in the context of Industry 4.0, there are various models which have been defined by 5G ASIA, some of them completely isolated from the MNO, some of them where still part of the capabilities are shared with the MNO. So there is a complex mixture of deployment models, taking into account also these newcomers, which are the verticals, which is something we probably will have to invest a little bit more time in the future to understand exactly what are the regulatory implication it has. Now, in passing, one thing which is very important in our regulation and let's say the framework conditions to deploy 5G in Europe is the security under what we call the security toolbox. So in the EU, we have defined with the member states a number of so-called mitigating measures to ensure that the highest level of security is, let's say, available from the deployed 5G networks. And this takes into account so-called strategic measures, which are really looking into regulatory, how the market is structured, what kind of suppliers we can count on. And on the other hand, the technical measures, which are more standards-based, what kind of standards we need, what kind of technology we need. And at this moment in time, on this particular aspect, we have started to work with the member states and with the security agency ENISA to try to move forward the definition of a certification scheme, which is certainly something that will need to be discussed internationally in such a way that there is a common, as possible, common view and approach to security of 5G networks. Now, taking into account the so-called digital compass or digital decade is also called, we are now putting in place the so-called DPP, Digital Policy Program, and the Digital Policy Program is, let's say, a Commission decision, which is to come by the end of this year, which will specify and clarify how we want to reach the objectives that we have set to ourselves with the member states. So there are a number of measures which are currently contemplated in terms of new regulatory models for deployment, in terms of new ways of let's say, cooperating with the member states to ensure visibility and clarity on spectrum assignments, also on how we can coordinate as strongly as possible to have common approaches towards security, low energy operations, and so on. So there are a number of elements which are now being discussed internally, but at this moment in time, this decision is not on the table. It will come by the end of the year. And in addition, we have several financial instruments that are available to support 5G deployment in Europe, in the sense that if you look at what we call the investment gap, I don't have the exact figure at the moment in time, but in Europe, it's in the order of 150 billion euros. This is the difference between what we expect the private sector will put on the table to deploy 5G and what would be needed to have the coverage objectives that we are targeting. So we have a number of, let's say, financial tools that we can mobilize to support those, let's say, missing financial elements. And in that context, it's very important to know that our president, Madame von der Leyen, she announced that 20% of the so-called next-gen EU budget, which is a dedicated recovery budget of 750 billion euros, 20% of that will be used for digital technologies, and within this 20%, a decent amount is reserved for 5G deployment. So one of our flagship projects in terms of 5G deployment is the so-called cross-border deployment of 5G. You see here the main corridors that we are thinking of for Europe. So today, on the blue, let's say, stretches, we have a number of projects which are indicated on this figure. So these projects are more research projects where technology is being trialed and tested. But for the next period of time, so between now and the end of this financial period in 2027, we have earmarked 1 billion euro to actual deployment under the so-called CEF2 program, which means Connected Europe Facility. And this, let's say, cross-border investments by the European Union will be or should be complemented by national investments coming under this next-gen recovery budget that I mentioned. So this is a very important part of our activity at this moment in time. It's takes place under what we call the MCPs, the multi-country projects, and that will frame a good part of our support to actual deployment in Europe in the next few years. Why? Because we have identified that automotive is one of the most mature sector in the vertical industries to go towards deployment. Now, just a very short glance into the future. At this moment in time, we are also putting in place an initiative of about 900 million euro, which is a kind of partnership between, let's say, the Commission and the private sector, which is gathered under an association called the 5G Infrastructure Association, which is chaired by Nokia at this moment in time. And our ambition is really to develop the technologies for the upcoming 6G period. 6G is a long way ahead because, okay, people think it will not be deployed before 2028 for the most optimistic Korean, let's say, plans. But 2030 is more classical date, which is taken by the stakeholders. But we see that there are a lot of initiatives already taking place in the world, trying to start this 6G race. And what is also interesting is that, for instance, you take the USA, which in 5G they had a market-driven approach. Now they are much more, let's say, proactively investing, even from the public side. Also on issues that they classify as 6G, which we don't exactly classify as 6G, but Open RAN. Open RAN is a very big topic in industry at this moment in time, and also in for some governments who have dedicated industrial policy, let's say, objectives. So at this moment in time, this is under preparation, and we hope to have, let's say, the green light to move ahead with this initiative by September, October this year. So sorry. So that's the end of my presentation, and my apologies.
Thank you very much. Before to pass again the floor to Luca, just one question. What, in few words, you could explain to us how you see 6G, where we are going, what you think will change, could change in practical terms, just to understand for the audience of today, because it's very interesting area, and what you can predict the direction.
Thanks a lot, Luigi. I have a lot of slides on that, but I didn't have time to go through the presentation. So for 6G, we see a number of aspects. The first aspect is that we believe that the move towards vertical industries, so that means connectivity applied to Industry 4.0, automotive sector, healthcare, this trend will further amplify and imposes requirements which are today not covered by 5G in terms of speed, in terms of latency, in terms of reliability. We know in 5G, we talk about the 5.9 reliability. Some people in the industry talk about the 7.9 or the 9.9 because they say when you have robots cooperating, you need a very high level of reliability. So this is just stretching the classical 5G path. On the other side, there are a number of new applications, completely new applications, which are being considered in the context of primarily immersive type of applications. All the applications which are based on digital twins, holographic communications, or even extended realities, they are to an extent already possible today with 5G, but not at scale. So it means that if you really want to go at a very high scale to cover this type of applications, you need to play a little bit with new type of architectures and with new type of integration of capabilities in the context of the mobile edge computing, for instance. So, of course, the trend that we see today towards disaggregation, Open RAN, and making things implemented in clouds or implementing a software is a trend that probably will evolve. But it will evolve according to people, and this is a concept which still needs to be clarified, from something that we call today cloud native networks towards AI-based networks, so artificial intelligence-based networks. That means the possibility not only to exchange information, but to use digital replicas of the world, even the biological world, to take actions on the physical world. So all these various worlds which are interconnected and on which we can take intelligent decisions from the perspective of supporting technology like artificial intelligence is part of the 6G roadmap today. One thing which is very important for us.
Bernard, if I interrupt you, but we are really running out of time and we still have speakers. So I'm really sorry for the interruption. But
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bernard, for this. And I'm sure if you want to share with us further documents, we will share it with all the speakers. But just to allow all panelists to speak, I would like to now give the floor to Jacqueline Lopez, who is Directress of Institutional Relations at Ericsson for the Latam South part, and they are deploying indeed some excellent examples of what could be drivers of 5G and IoT industry. So Jacqueline, thank you very much for being with us today. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Good morning, everyone. As part of a Swedish company that has been established for almost 100 years in Brazil, I'm really glad to see this collaboration between Brazil and European Union. I'm going to share a couple of slides here for our discussion. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, very well.
Perfect. So a brief overview about Ericsson. Ericsson is a 5G pioneer worldwide in 5 continents. So far, we have 86 live 5G networks in 43 countries. And we have reached almost 140 commercial 5G agreements. This is the global perspective, but it's not different when it comes to Brazil. As I mentioned, we are established for almost 100 years here in Brazil, and we have been the pioneers for 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G in Brazil as well, leading the market with 52% of market share here in the country. And we expect R$1 billion for investments in 5G in Brazil, considering our production here. For instance, we have been the first to launch the 5G line production in Latin America and also our local R&D. And why is 5G so important? 5G is one of the key areas to bring economic recovery in Europe, in Brazil, and worldwide. And how this is going to happen? If we consider the pandemic, for the first 5 months, a couple of sectors, let's take education, for instance. Education sector grew in 5 months, what was expected to grow in 10 years. So it shows not only in this sector, but we can pick telemedicine, e-commerce, and so many others that we are depending on networks, on connectivity. And this is very important to connect people and things. Let's understand further how it will impact the economy. Our internal study shows that digital transformation can bring up to 391 billion reais in revenues here only for Brazil by 2030. And how is this expected to take place? Recently, we released our mobility report showing that 3.5 billion 5G subscriptions are forecast by 2026 globally. And as mentioned previously here in the event, the big disruption for the 5G technology is actually on the B2B part, impacting on several sectors. If we take a look on the revenue expected only for Brazil, for instance, we can see that 5G specifically is going to bring 67 billion reais in revenues for the operators. But if we consider the other ICT players, this brings additional 86 billion reais by 2030. And how is this spread all over the industries? So here's just an example. As you can see, most of the sectors we mapped, they can grow from 65 to almost 90%, 85% by 2030 by leveraging the technology. And here we have several examples. Healthcare, we have seen telemedicine is increasing the use a lot. Manufacturing, for instance, Industry 4.0, public safety, agriculture, which is a very important sector for Brazil, and many others here. Let's understand how does it work for a private sector. This is a case that took place in Europe with one of our partners in terms of operators and a company. So it was an engine for aircraft, and the solution was basically monitoring and controlling production to enhance efficiency, quality, and design of the product. So basically, by this real-time control, the company was able to save 25 million euros per factory and per year, while at the same time it reduced emissions in 16 million tons. This is very important. Here's just an example from the industry, but here in Brazil, we have been working not only in the industry and manufacturing, but also in agriculture, which is a very relevant pillar for Brazil. It's also important to understand how does it work in terms of environment. We expect 5G to multiply by 4 the data traffic, and this would, if no technology would be involved here, increase also energy consumption. So towards energy efficiency, Ericsson has been developing a technology that is able to save, to reduce the energy consumption. So actually, while multiplying by 4 the traffic data, we don't change the emissions. The energy consumptions stay the same. This is one of the biggest industry challenges, not only in terms of the private sector, but also for public policy as well. So it's very important to work together on this. We know that for 5G to achieve scale, it's very important that 5G auctions takes place. And this already happened in several countries in Europe, worldwide. Here in Latin America, we have one. Brazil is pretty close to achieve that target. And we understand that there should be a 5G national plan to leverage digital transformation. And how? We have here 5 key areas that are very important to work on. So first, innovation. We need to activate all the pillars to leverage innovation. We know that in global index, most innovative countries, they already deployed 5G. So there is a connection, and it is important to allow the regulation and incentives to support the technology development. Spectrum. So for instance, here in Brazil, we expect the biggest spectrum auction with 5G that should take place soon. And this is very important because we also need spectrum in low, medium, and high bands, because all of them, they have different kinds of applications. For instance, for industry, you may use more the medium and high bands, whereas perhaps for agriculture, you may need more the low bands. This will contribute to investments. Not to say that the model that the 5G auction in Brazil has adopted is very important, because they are shifting the spectrum fees to investments. And this will allow growth in the whole country, connecting more people and more things. Also, it's important to be careful with taxes. This is a key area for competition. And for Brazil to be more competitive worldwide, it's important to take care of tax reduction and also simplification, which has been discussed in several levels in the government side, but also in dialogue with the industry. Fourth, cybersecurity. It is key to promote a trusted digital environment. And Ericsson has been adopting a holistic approach to achieve the best way on cybersecurity. And finally, acceleration. Accelerating digital transformation throughout different sectors. So we show that many sectors will take advantage on the benefits of 5G. What we believe is that it is important to work together, Brazil and European Union, private sector and public sector. This way, with dialogue and building together, we can leverage the potential of 5G to achieve the best for people and things connected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline, for this excellent overview of the potential of 5G. And but I think it is also very good and appropriate to underline that a lot of investments are still needed. A very good strategy, as you pointed out, is needed to reap out the benefits of 5G. And at the same time, as I was also pointing at the very beginning, there is a considerable segment of the population that still does not have even access to 4G. So it is very, we need a variable geometry strategy to tackle all the different challenges we have. And it's very good to have here with us today Beatrice Sannuti and Adriana Baldini that are working precisely on this kind of approaches. Beatrice, she is head of the Digital Access Program at the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, and she is spearheading these access projects, of the UK office. And together with Adriana, they are developing and putting in practice an extremely interesting project on community networks. So without any further ado, the floor is yours.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Luca. And I hope colleagues can see my presentation. And just to say thank you very much for this opportunity. I think it's a great space, a great forum for us to exchange views, best practices, and perhaps, why not build some opportunities and, explore synergies for further cooperation. So I'll jump right into it. I'll be speaking a bit fast because of time, but I'm very happy to pick up any of this offline if needed. So I'm the head of the Digital Access Program here in Brazil. And it's a program from the UK government that is also present in 4 other countries, so Kenya, Indonesia, South Africa, and Nigeria. And our goal with the program is to address really fundamental constraints to digital inclusion. And the way we do it, because digital inclusion is so complex and it could never be tackled by one lenses, is that we follow a very multi lens approach that we divide into 3 pillars. So the first one focuses on models and enablers, where we are looking into connectivity challenges, regulatory policy, public policies, testing new technologies, new business models, and some other opportunities. The second one is about trust and resilience. So it's a lot about strengthening, partner countries' cybersecurity strategies, data protection, and privacy. And the last one is, building and supporting sustainable digital ecosystems. So our rationale here is that we can connect then we protect, and then we thrive together with that, those communities. Because our theory of change is that if we have increased digital inclusion, that we will unlock development opportunities and benefits, not only for the direct communities affected, but also, for international cooperation, trade agreements, and whatnot. So that's really our hope to do in Brazil. And I'm not going to go into detail because, of course, we have very limited time, but there's, a lot of really good things that have been achieved in Brazil over the past few years, but there's still some remaining challenges around these 4 drivers for digital exclusion. And our program really focuses in addressing all of those things. But for the purposes of today's conversation, I would like to focus on digital inclusion, because we hope to leave no one behind, absolutely no one behind. And that should be the baseline. That should be the starting point. And on that, we hope that institutions, the private sector, government, civil society will come together, such as what we're doing today, to explore, how can we really leverage the key drivers for digital inclusion? And I see that, for example, there are 4 main drivers for that. So affordable and sustainable last mile connectivity, awareness and attainability, locally relevant digital content and services, and digital literacy and skills. And this is a bit more detailed here. I'm not going to go into details, I promise. But just to say that a lot of what has been shared today, be it in infrastructure, be about cooperation with R&P, be about academic cooperation, looking into new business models, all of that links really well and has a lot of synergies with what we're trying to do in the country. So we've been working together with Anatel, with the Ministry of Economy, with Ministry of Communications, and so many others, NICBR, and so many others partners, in trying to really tackle this from a very holistic approach. But because of time, I would like to pass on to Dr. Adriana, because she will talk about one specific initiative that we have been supporting in country, which looks at, supporting the regulatory environment, but also best practices around community networks, which is a great way to ensure, digital inclusion for, local vulnerable communities. But I'm not going to give any more spoilers on that. She's the expert. So I'll pass to her. And then I'm very happy to, pick any of this offline on other opportunities. So yeah, very, very fast to keep to my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, please, Adriana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Luca, and thank you, Beatrice. And I thank the Foundation and EU Brazil to be part of this important conference. It's really been an honor to be working with the UK program and with a wonderful team of Brazilian women, Raquel Gatto, Bruna Sanoli, Luisa Pereira, and with be a consultant for the Association of Progressive Communications, who together with UK program, with an advisory committee of Brazilians, and with a number of stakeholders have been working on how innovation also includes for Brazil in digital inclusion a number of new paradigms. And what we did is we have worked for 6 months with advisory committee, with Anatel, with UK, with APC, and interviewees from Brazil of on building a policy brief for community networks in Brazil. Also working on a manual on community networks to spread this concept and the fact that it's an important social player in bridging the digital divide, and also working on videos to spread also what is a community network, why it's important in local connectivity, and why it matters, especially in Latin America, with the huge inequalities and the huge rural and urban gaps. So I'm co-leading this the policy brief part on community networks, where we identify the baseline in Brazil in different platforms and connectivity, also access to media from a non-commercial perspective. What are the challenges, the barriers? And of course, in these few minutes, I cannot, and we'll invite you when we launch this wonderful program and this wonderful policy brief. But we identified and heard from stakeholders and from rural communities, quilombolas communities, indigenous communities, but also urban communities of women and men wanting to connect themselves when there are market failures or where sustainable state connectivity is not feasible. So we grounded in principles such as inclusion, equality, the human rights of access to information, freedom of expression, self-determination. I mean, people, and especially indigenous people, because of the international law framework, have a right to their own communications and to self-determine their kind of network, services, content, and so remove barriers, cultural, economic, linguistic, and regulatory as well. So because of also the need to democratize, as it was mentioned before, I'm glad, access to spectrum, to networks, and to promote democracy based on pluralism in media, in information. We are, once we mapped all this state of the art in Brazil and the huge progress it has made, as it has been shown here in terms of coverage, penetration, innovation, we still see that there's a need to acknowledge that in century 21 and year 2021, there's new players, new innovation. There's not only the public and private sector, but also the social sector. Why? Because innovation and technology has made possible for new access networks to be deployed and operated and maintained by local communities, both on a profit or non-profit basis. And with the due training, the due enabling environment, communities in rural areas or peri-urban or remote areas can connect themselves and gain resilience and agency. What are the recommendations we mainly are doing in our policy brief for community networks to flourish, which, by the way, would benefit the whole society, and also productivity, inclusion, democracy, biodiversity protection? I mean, all these indigenous communities are our best guardians to biodiversity. So we are doing a number of recommendations. Just mention the aspects of such recommendations on important issues. The first, to open a permanent dialogue with Anatel for communities across the country of Brazil, and why not establish a committee on community networks, just as the committee that Anatel opened for small ISPs, the PPPs, case of promoting with asymmetric regulation. All these small ISPs has to be emulated. It's been a wonderful success. Also, we see an opportunity for improvement in access to spectrum, both review some Wi-Fi power limits, review access to spectrum for backhaul links, spectrum sharing for rural and community networks, TV white spaces, and also in deep remote areas like the Amazonia, community should have access to HF radios where that is the best technology. There's no one size fits all. There's no business as usual if we want to beat the digital divide. Then we also identified licensing, registration procedures, although there's been an ongoing simplification effort by Anatel. We still see that for some communities, some of those licensing and administrative procedures are tough. And so a further simplification and maybe the creation of a special regime for nonprofit community networks that are complementary and that do not compete in the commercial markets is necessary. Right now, they are using the SLP regime, Servicio Limitado Privado, that was not tailored especially for community connectivity. Also, and very important to this conference from what I've been listening is increasing open access policies to backhaul networks. I love to see all this fiber deployed and to see wholesale networks, but they should become affordable and available on a wholesale basis, also for communities wanting to connect themselves. They are nonprofits, so they might need special plans to access backhaul. Because access networks is no longer the key problem. It's backhaul, affordable backhaul for communities in rural areas connecting themselves. They are not open, they cannot access wholesale offers. Mercado de Atacado is not open for community networks. And also an innovation first, the Universal Service Fund that Natalia spoke about. We need to see new beneficiaries of funding, like cooperatives, these community networks, projects where women are leading change. It's important to cross gender equality targets, sustainable development goals, and inclusion when rethinking the fund of universal service. Finally, also we will include in the policy brief more thorough promotion national industry of hardware and open software, so that communities do not see a barrier in, which is now a barrier, in very, very high taxes and import tariffs and homologation or type approval requirements. Those are really harming Brazil. Even large corporations are being harmed by these fiscal policies, even more vulnerable communities that would like to assemble hardware like routers, but they need imported components. And so a policy on that regard would tremendously benefit digital inclusion. Also, open data at the very granular level. Anatel has done marvels with opening data on coverage, but we need it at the locality level, not only municipal level. And finally, but I mentioned it already, more access, I mean, communities access to wholesale markets and infrastructure. I think the more traffic these wholesale networks can have, the more demand they can build from all kinds of players, including nonprofit players. Well, the more demand they will have and the more traffic, we wouldn't like to see a huge project of backbone networks like in Peru falling apart because there was no demand because of the rate structure or the price structure. And so I think open access to all these kinds of players in the social sector as well are key. And well, we look forward to sharing with you in the near future this year this policy brief and the manual and this whole APC and UK DAP team put together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Diana. And it's really great to see that the debate on community network that I've been personally engaged with for several years now is becoming so present, also institutionally at the Brazilian level, thanks to the great work of APC and the UK Foreign Office as well. It's also very good to see that now Anatel uses this book that we launched 2 years ago at the IGF, that is not really visible, but instructions to provide information how to build community networks on the Anatel page. So for all those who are interested, I really encourage you to check the website of the Anatel. It's Anatel/redes comunitarias, and you will find a lot of very interesting information there. And please stay tuned to receive even more excellent information and guidance elaborated by Adriana's project, which is a very good example of how a multi-stakeholder partnership can actually be put in place and could be a trigger for a more open and diverse digital ecosystem. And again, this is one of the elements. It's not a silver bullet, but is one of the elements that is necessary for a sustainable digital strategy. Now, having said that, I would just like to share a very quick question because it has been repeated several times by several people in our Slido applications about how do the various panelists think that people in low income or rural areas can be connected. And that is resonates with the comment I made at the very beginning, that we have connected the easy part, those who live in cities and high income customers. And now we still need to connect the almost half of the world, which is the low income rural population, and we need to think differently. So how do the panelists think that their different initiatives can positively contribute to universal access and meaningful access, as Natalia was reminding us? Please, quick feedback, because then we will have to in a couple of.
I can kick it off, Luca, if you like.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, listen, it is true that for the time being, especially in the countries in Latin America where we have, speaking about Latin America, not touching Italy, where we are deploying in cities. But you know that especially in Latin America, mega cities tend to be very different. So there are areas which are really severely underserved. For instance, taking our example, I mean, we're not yet at that stage in São Paulo or in other cities in Brazil, but taking the case of Bogota, where we are probably 1 year ahead of what we are doing here in Brazil, we are deploying at the moment in the stratum, what's so-called stratum 1 and 2 of the city, which are really the areas, the poorest areas. And guess what? I mean, actually, operators tend to be more interested in these areas than in the others, because those areas have been the ones that they have not been able to address with their traditional approach. And they know that if you go there, I mean, today internet is a fundamental need for everybody, like electricity. If you go there with a good fiber optic proposal at the same price, by the way, not different from other places, they will get, they will make business, they will get customers. So we are actually seeing, as an wholesaler, looking at operators, we seem to have more traction in the low ARPU areas.
Thank you very much, Stefano. I think we have an immediate comment by Jacqueline on top of this, and then Natalia wanted to add a bit of comments.
Thank you, Luca. I just would like to emphasize the 5G auction in Brazil. I think it has an important role in this sense. So as I mentioned, the 5G auction, the draft regulation, is shifting spectrum fee to investments. It means that 14,000 more locals will be connected, because instead of getting spectrum fees, there are obligations for the parts of the bid that will take place soon in Brazil to connect more places and more people. So this way we will have the country will be more connected and the whole society will be benefit, and also we can enhance connectivity.
Yes, and now we have Natalia, and then also Adriana wanted to chip in.
Well, just 2 points real quick. One is that we have a rural broadband policy framework that I will share the link right here with the organizers. Maybe they can share with you. Please take a look at that. It's a document specifically addressing this question. And then if we look at Brazil, this ties to the point I was making regarding the new framework that was legal framework that was approved 2 years ago. So we should make sure that while the changes were great to attract more investment, we should make sure that some principles of admin law are guaranteed, especially in continuity of service and thinking about these specific areas that are more in need for different types of structure, right? And in investments and access. Thank you.
Please go ahead, Adriana.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a quick comment on it's important to acknowledge that due to technological innovation, there are affordable wireless technology for communities to connect themselves, where high capex or high opex of global companies not make a business case. And this was not true maybe 10 years ago. And that's been the main shift. But then we then have to make sure that that same innovation becomes true in access to spectrum, regulation and policy, in access to backhaul. Because, well, Natalia mentioned, and I think these are ITU figures and the billions needed to connect everyone in Latin America. Very impressive, like 47 billion for LATAM. Those are based on capex of commercial, large-scale operators. And the new innovation is that not every single global operator is can meet the needs of local economies. In Latin America, this huge inequality makes it important to recognize there are also contributions from local operators, local models, just like the PPPs have shown, that increased competition, fiber coverage of small ISPs in Brazil. And so the costs are different for local potential community networks acting locally. And many regulators have recognized that fact. Make, for instance, spectrum sharing of license bands, IMT bands, like Ofcom is doing in UK, allowing for shared local access. Because in rural areas, spectrum is underutilized, for instance. But we also want to see whatever mobile project there is for community networks, like in Mexico. In Mexico, there is an indigenous wireless network deployed and owned by the indigenous people of Oaxaca. But they had free access to spectrum. And so now they need more access to backhaul and fiber. So fiber will always be extremely important. And I think in our Latin America region also, for sustainable development goals, among other reasons, it's important to promote local economies. And that's the value of bottom-up connectivity models. It's complementary to national operators or global operators, were definitely necessary and important as well.
Thank you very much, Adriana. And now we have the last words from Carlos, and then we will declare the webinar closed.
Well, I'm going to be very short. I hope that you can hear me well. First of all, just to renew my thanks and my congratulations to all the speakers, because they brought up a very important set of issues, and somehow this is also a little bit opening the way for a continuation of some of the points that were brought up. A little very short comment just on the point that was being brought up by Luca, just to say that in fact the issues of affordability and accessibility coverage is actually an issue that presents not only in Latin America, but actually is still an issue in many other countries, including several European countries, because the prevalent regulatory model tends to see, let's say, the competition and the availability of choice as a way of addressing the issue. The problem is that when you have scarcely populated areas, obviously you have a problem of return on investment, and the competition doesn't really address it. That's the reason why we need to look for more effective policy measures to address this kind of market failures. Anyway, my congratulations to Luca, to Luigi, to all the speakers. It has been a pleasure to attend and to follow this very interesting seminar. Back to you, Luca.
Thank you very much, Carlos, and I would like to thank all the panelists that have had also the patience to stay for almost an extra hour here with us. The discussion has been extremely interesting and productive. We also see that there is this latent theme of digital transformation that may be a very good theme for a third EU-Brazil conference on innovation and digital economy, maybe toward the end of the year. And it's also very good that we are creating a community of people sharing information, as Luigi was mentioning very well. We do not only need to do good work, but we also need to make it visible and to have a good community, not only of researchers, but also of policymakers, of business leaders, of civil society leaders and fellow academics that can share ideas and cross-fertilize with different experience so that we reach out the best possible solutions. And then using solutions as a plural, because there is, what is evident from this very interesting discussion is that there is no one single silver bullet. There is really the need to have a lot of different sub-strategies combined in an overall one. And we need to have this sort of multi-stakeholder approach, because we need strategy, we need good policy, we need investments, and we need people doing things. So thank you very much to everyone for this excellent conversation. Let me give the floor to Luigi for, I think, a very last word. Consider this closed.
Yes, no, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. And I would like to thanks a lot also Carlos for the help and support, which is very important for us. But if I may say just one word, I think Europe already gave an answer to the area where nobody wants to invest, where private sector doesn't want to invest, there will be public money. So I know that there has been in certain country the solution. I'm not judging whether it's good or bad, but this is what is happening. Last bit is Carlo would be very, I think, and I say also this to Luca, I think the next, or I hope the next opportunity of discussion should be focused on the strategy and policy, Europe and Brazil on artificial intelligence. I think it's a very important topic. Europe has its own strategy, has its own work. Brazil the same, and maybe it should be good to compare and to discuss together on what we could done together in this very strategic and important area. And thank you very much to everybody from Brussels. So you see, we have from everywhere, different countries. I think Stefano, I don't know, was from Milano.
I'm based in Milan, yes.
Milano, yes. And yep. Rio de Janeiro, everywhere, Brasilia. Thanks to technology, we can connect much easier. Thank you very much.
Ciao, bye everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye
bye. Thank you.
Ciao.